Last evening, I received a troubling Facebook message from a good friend of mine back east where I grew up. And she was asking me for guidance on something. A friend of hers, a man I don't know, had just lost his child. The young man, his son, was waiting for a heart valve operation and died before it could be done. What was troubling the man was he had also buried his daughter several years ago who died from cancer. And he was railing at God. In fact, she sent his Facebook post to me, and he said, "Again, my prayers have not been answered. My second child died." And you have to ask, what do you say to him? You know, we talk about a good and gracious God, and yet sometimes things they don't seem fair. They don't seem equitable. They don't seem right. Today we hear a story about equity, fairness, justice, maybe, about a whole group of people, it would all be men in this case, who labored all day. And as you can tell from the hours they give, we're talking a 12-hour day. We're not talking about, 9 to 5 with a coffee break and lunch in between. We're talking 12 hours in a field in the sun. And they feel like they've been cheated. And yet the landowner says to them, "Isn't this what we agreed to?" We sometimes forget that God is about mercy. He's not about equity. We all hope we're going to make it to heaven, but I guarantee that when we get there, we are going to be very surprised about who is there and who is not there. It's God's mercy that allows a serial killer who maybe has a moment of clarity at the time he's being executed and asks for God's mercy, who ends up in heaven. And then we don't see the person that we see in church all the time and wonder, why aren't they here? Well, it's not just about going to church. It's the lives we live, the things we do, how we treat other people. We have this image that somehow God is a great punisher. What if there's nobody in hell? You know, our former Pope Benedict, I should say Pope Emeritus Benedict, made that comment. He said, in our own creed, we say Jesus descended into hell. If Jesus went into hell, there's no hell anymore. Perhaps hell is empty. Perhaps mercy was given to all people. We don't know that. But we have to realize that it's not about equity. This is not an acceptability program. This is not, I'm a good, upstanding Catholic who comes to church every Sunday and does what I'm supposed to do, and therefore that's not what it's about. It's about a great and loving God that can wipe away anything, give back anything, forgive anyone. My friend on Facebook asked, what do I say to the man? What do I say to the man? I can't tell him, go up to him and say, you have a good and wonderful God that loves you. She said, that's not going to cut it. So I prayed on it. And I wrote back to her this morning, and I said to her, I would tell him that I'm sure both of his children were grateful that he was there to journey with them during their final hours. I'm sure that they were grateful that their dad was there with them. And while that may not be easy for him, maybe, just maybe, it made it easier for them to die prematurely, but yet have their Father there to journey with them. Ours is not a God of equity. Ours, a God is not balancing and counterbalancing and making up, and ours is a God of mercy. And this story today reminds us we too are called to be merciful, like our great and merciful God.